Alright, so that only took a second, but I have these sections here. They're squared up, they're done. I've obviously cut this angle now so it's parallel to the shoulders. So by doing that, by removing this material and this material, I have lost my layout line as far as where the thickness of this board needs to go to. So before I do anything, still referencing the outside face, redrawing those guys in. And I don't know that I need this in all three of these faces, or these edges, pardon me, but I have it, so now if anything goes wrong, I've got nobody to blame but myself. Alright. It'd be better if I could blame somebody else, though. I'd prefer that if possible. Alright. My marks here from where we started, I know this is all waist. This is going to be the waist section here as well. Alright, so before I do anything, I need to set up the height of the blade, and depending on how many of these you're going to be doing, the question about dado blades versus single blade, I think are pretty appropriate. Because I just have one for this video, it probably would make sense for me to just stick with a single blade. Dado blades, if I had a couple of these, are also a good option. Alright, oops, there we are. That looks much better. Alright, so all I'm doing is trying to align the angle at the end of this board to my miter gauge so that when I set this thing up, that's pretty close. When I set this thing up, it will be able to carry through and follow the shoulder line. Alright, so the height of the blade is set. I've set to the angle. Now I just need to bump this fence over until I'm truly engaged into where this shoulder needs to live. That looks pretty good. Too far. Good. All right. So there we are. Okay. So doing a test piece here. What I want to do is just trim the very end of this just to see how close I am to my mark, my layout line. And if I'm good, then I'll continue to go until this board touches the fence. It should go without saying, if I'm doing a pair of these things, one at this angle, one for the opposite side at this angle, I would want to leave the setup for the fence and the miter gauge, just changing the angle. Height of the blade, obviously. So I'll do both of them at the same time just by readjusting the miter gauge. Alright, so let me see where I'm at for the height, and I'll be able to tell right away. hopefully, oops, there you go. All right, so hopefully that made sense, what happened with the face of this thing. Come on, focus. So I did want to go laterally across the face of this board to make sure that it had a nice smooth surface here, and I'm pretty happy with that. That's totally appropriate as far as a glue up surface. The other thing that I should mention with this is that I was pretty happy when I started the cut to find that my layout line from my marking gauge had been matched, and I actually overshot it just a hair. But I don't really care because this is a reference from this board to get me started, and then what's going to count for the next board. So I kind of don't care what this thing is, as long as it's within the reasonable tolerance, I'm fine. So that means it'll just not cut as deep on the next board. But the shoulder has been cut and clean. The one thing that I can notice right here is that there's a little bit of a lip for this material to be removed. Not as much on that side, which is probably good. Yeah, probably good. All right, so I will need to clean up this section here with a chisel before I can drop this thing fully into position and have it seated. But right now, if you remember our layout lines from before, I'll find where this thing goes on the length of this board, and then I'll be able to translate this dovetail shape to where that pocket needs to go. I don't have to clean up the shoulders yet for doing that. Before I drop this thing in, I'll have to, but for right now, this one looks pretty reasonable. All right, so let me do that. I'll lay this thing out and then talk about how to make it cut. Okay, see you guys in a sec.